thing I want to say to this is burnout is not a new term. None of these terms are new. None of these terms are new, and stress is a necessary part of us being human. We don't get things done without stress. It's just when the stress level, like you said, Dr. Natasha, gets to a point where it goes over how our body can cope is where the problem is. And that's where we are at right now. And like I said from the beginning, this is a well-needed initiative. And Deb and our corporate events, you guys are right ahead of it, the game with regards to doing things like this. So I appreciate it once again. I wanted to, and I touched on it with regards to that last question, with regards to burnout and employers. What are some strategies you could give to your clients who are in a situation where they're feeling the effects of burnout because of work stresses? Natasha, I'm going to start with you because I again, just making mention of a patient that came into the space. He came in and you just physically see that he was destroyed. Like his eyes were sulking. He's starting to thin his hair. And I just mentioned to him, I'm like, how many other people do you work with? And he said, there's 10 of us and one boss. And I said, okay, how about the 10 of you come together and just write an email or a phone call, a conference call, something. What could, just to speak to your boss to say, hey, we need to discuss this. And his response to me was, we did this. Would you have anything else to add to this gentleman or anyone in this situation? Because I know he's not the only one out there, right?
No, absolutely. First of all, I think that what you had prescribed to him as one of the interventions, I think was a great idea, because a lot of times in this area of burnout, we also believe we don't have agency. We don't have the ability to change things or to speak up. And a lot of times it's that use of agency that can help to mitigate and navigate some of that stress. So being able to say, have you been able to speak to, that level of stress, us feeling overwhelmed, being able to, speak to the manager, that kind of thing. I think that was one way of being able to navigate this. I think the second thing, if I'm really going to do a deep dive, especially with somebody in psychotherapy, I would really start to want to look at what is this individual's expectation of themselves? A lot of times what happens in the midst of all of this is that I we have these rules for living that we have for ourselves, where we want to say everything has to be at a certain level at all times, regardless of pandemic or pre-pandemic or whatever. I still need to be functioning at this level. So even though I'm working from home, A, B, C, D, E, and F have to be done at the same level at all times. And if I am not meeting that, then there is something wrong with me. So I would want to take a step back and really want to get a sense of, what is it that this individual is doing overall? And I just wanted to mention what you were mentioning, Dr. J, in regards to looking at somebody's whole health. So we're looking at it just beyond the physical, things that are going on. We are whole beings, which means we
Yes.
have to talk about all spheres of this individual's life. So is this individual, for example, that used to be working outside of the home and now is now working from home, but then also had different responsibilities in the home, that he feels that they all have to be at the same level, regardless that he's no longer working from outside and coming inside. Certain chores have to be done in the same level. My kids have to be at, have to do this and that. So we start to look at this individual's rules for living and how that has been impacting sort of their day-to-day functioning as well, their own expectations. Are they giving themselves the grace to actually take those steps back? Or to say, okay, you know what, I am overwhelmed today, or I can't get everything done, but that's not a reflection of me. And it's not that I need to punish myself or pathologize myself because of it. So I start to look at some of those pieces. And to me, that's the foundation, so that we're able to then provide this individual with increased agency, but also helping them to understand that the stress is still real. The stress is going to continue to be there. So I'm not going to tell them that I'm a magician and that we can get rid of this stress altogether, but how can we manage it or lower the intensity of it so it's not as overwhelming? And to add what you had initially prescribed to that individual, I would love to look at other ways to increase this person's agency. So yes, you
Absolutely.
mentioned the email. What else could be done? You know, whom else could they speak to? Or again, could those other 10 employees sort of rally together to sort of see how can I, you know, divide and conquer, for an example. So other ways that agency could be addressed so that they don't feel that they are muted, which then I think also causes some of that personal burnout.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to add two things to your point with regards to this situation. Fear is one of the reasons why most people won't speak out.
Yeah.
Fear to lose their job in this difficult time. Like nobody is even thinking remotely that to quote unquote step out of line or to challenge authority with work. And it doesn't even matter what the work is. You could be a frontline worker, you could be an IT specialist. Speaking out and saying, "Hey, I'm having a difficult time." Back in the mind, you're thinking you might lose your job, you might lose the ability to pay your mortgage, to buy food, whatnot. And then lastly, sorry, and then lastly, it's the idea of excellence. I hear you. Like we all put ourselves in a position, and I think I can speak for all of you. Like you are all hard workers. You all love accomplishment, and looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, you suck today, or you're not doing it today, is very
Yeah.
difficult. And that goes back to that G word that we all mentioned, guilt. Guilt, self-guilt is it's eroding a lot of successful people.
Mhm.
And we just need to continuously have conversations like this so that we can know that it's okay not to be able to perform at that high level every single time.
I just wanted to mention, and then, you know,
Please
I
do.
just don't want to take too much time. But the other thing I wanted to mention is sometimes within that guilt, you know, we mute ourselves. So what I have actually seen is that when we're able to provide agency and say, what would it look like if you were able to express your concerns to your manager, to your boss? Um, it might actually work in that person's favor, even though a lot of times the guilt provides them with a dialogue of, oh, this is how exactly it's going to go. We're actually, because all of us are going through this pandemic, interestingly enough, sometimes being able to have that conversation, the managers can actually say, me too. I'm
Mm,
struggling as well. So then what happens is that opening that conversation, even though there's that fear of losing job, a lot of times in that fear, we've already created a dialogue and muted ourselves. So we then
mhm.
internalize a lot of that stress. When we actually just open up that conversation, interestingly enough, a lot of times you can hear some of the camaraderie actually, and
Excellent.
the managers themselves are also looking at the stress in terms of performance and what the company needs and that kind of thing. So you might actually have more collaboration than conflict and fear of losing job.
Absolutely. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is an awesome topic because we're seeing this more now than ever, right? And you know, I can speak from a little bit of experience. A few years ago, I had hit, I had started to think again, and my depression and anxiety really kind of took a hold of me. And I remember having to go into my manager's office, and I might break down a little bit because it's still emotional for me. And I remember having to say, I'm not well, and this was probably almost 3 years ago. I said, I'm not well right now. And she could see it in my face. And that's all I had to say. But prior to that, my fear was very much what you said. Am I going to lose my job? Am I going to be penalized for this? Am I going to be impacted long term because I'm not well and I need some sort of accommodation or leniency, right? And now, you know, having been doing a lot of corporate wellness discussions around through the pandemic specifically, a lot of the discussion has shifted to the realization, or not the realization, but the reminder that for somebody who needs some sort of time or accommodation or a break or you know, a little bit of a reduction in their workload, the law, I mean, realistically, the law is on your side as well. If that's the reassurance that you need, it is the law that the employer has to accommodate. You can't be penalized if you actually, I mean, if that's the reassurance that somebody needs, because that's the truth. And oftentimes, and I think Dr. Natasha and Dr. J, you both mentioned this already, but the only standard that we're really trying to live up to is our own. And I think that's the hard part to get through, is that we have to remind ourselves that we're not the standard that we're living up to isn't our partners or our bosses. It's what we think our standard needs to be, and that we need to reach that every day.